In Units 1 and 2, we worked on asking and answering questions with question words, such as who or when, that require literal information to answer. In other words, these questions are considered right there questions that can be answered directly from the text. It is critical to understand what the question is asking and how to answer it. We are going to become automatic with these question words and learn exactly how to answer these type of questions at a mastery level. Now turn to page 14 in your student books. Follow along as I review the information on the slide. If the question asks who, your answer must include information about a person or group. If the question asks what, your answer must include an action or name of a thing. If the question asks when, your answer must include a specific time, date, or event. If the question asks where, your answer must include a general location or a specific place. We already talked about how skilled readers preview the text for text features, such as headings and graphics. Skilled readers also reread text slowly and carefully to gain understanding. They monitor their thinking while reading to be sure that each sentence and paragraph makes sense. Skilled readers also ask themselves and others questions about their reading. During the last 2 units, I explained the question words to you. Now it is your turn to review the question words with your partner. Well, in this case, with me. Work together to identify each question word and what its answer must contain. Let's practice. If the question asks who, if the question asks what, if the question asks when, if the question asks where, this time when we read Gemini the Twins, we will ask questions about the text. Doing this helps us understand what is important. We will also answer the questions that we ask, which should clear up misunderstandings about confusing text you have marked in Lesson 5. Now let's turn to page 85 in the student book. Let's do what skilled readers do and reread Gemini the Twins with an eye on asking good questions. Remember what you do when you read. Your eyes need to track or follow the text while your pencil points to the words. While you're busy looking and pointing to text, your brain is busy looking for patterns and making meaning. While reading, be aware of questions that come to your mind and questions that you want to ask others. Eyes ready? Pencil ready? Let's begin. I want you to read the introduction, which is lines 1 through 5. When you finish, look up so that I know we are ready to move on. Now turn to page 104. Think about the text. What questions do you have? What should your peers have learned about constellations during this section? Choose your question word to begin your question. Consider starting your question with who or what. Write the question on the page. Be prepared to answer your question. Now let's go back to the passage on page 85. Now we will read the next section. What are constellations? Eyes ready? Pencil ready? Let's begin. Now let's turn again to page 104. Choose a different question word. Try using what or when. Write the question on the page. Be prepared to answer your question. Now let's turn back to page 86. It's time to continue reading. Eyes ready? Pencil ready? Begin reading. Why did the idea of constellations begin? Now turn back to page 104. Choose a different question word. Try using how or when. Write the question on the page. Be prepared to answer your question. Now return to page 86. Let's continue reading. Read the ancient stories of Gemini. Let's begin. Now turn back to page 104. Choose a question word. Try using who or what for this question. Be prepared to answer your question. Now turn to page 87. It's time to finish the text. Eyes ready? Pencil ready? Let's begin reading Look Up. Now turn back to page 104. Because this is a longer section, let's ask 2 questions using question words that you haven't used yet. Use where, how, who, or when for the questions. Try to create one question by using words from the heading. Write the questions on the page. Be prepared to answer your questions. Now read each question out loud and answer it out loud. Now turn to page 105. We are going to complete both 105 and 106 with this activity. Now we are going to answer other questions about Gemini, the twins, for more practice. Some of the questions may be similar to the questions you have already asked and answered. Read each question. Identify and underline the question word. Use the question words poster or chart on page 14 to review the type of information required to respond to the question. Use text headings or other text features to locate the content needed to answer the question. Reread the section to retrieve information if needed. Use the question word to formulate a response. Provide exact text evidence to support your answer. Let's look at the first question. Number 1, what is Gemini? If the question asks what, the answer must include an action or name of a thing. What is the question word in this sentence? How do we answer a question that begins with what? I can combine the picture and the text to find the answer. The picture shows stars connected with imaginary lines that form two bodies with the brightest stars as their heads. On page 85, lines 2 and 3, it says, "The constellation Gemini is a sight to see. It has two very bright stars called the twins." The word "it" refers to the constellation Gemini in the preceding sentence. This is my text evidence. Now I will write my answer. I want to make sure that my answer is enough for me to look at and learn from, so I need to include part of the question in my answer. Begin answering the question by using part of the question in your answer. So let's look at this sentence starter to help you out. Gemini is blank. Let's try another one. Number 2, how were constellations helpful? What is the question word in this sentence? How do we answer a question that begins with how? Let's try this one without a sentence frame to help. Remember to put part of the question in your answer and provide text evidence from the passage. If you need a sentence starter, here is a sentence starter. Constellations were helpful by blank. Be sure to include a way something is done. And be sure to quote evidence from lines 10 to 14 of the passage. Let's try one more. Number 3, how did the, not how, oops, why did the idea of constellations begin? What is the question word in this sentence? How do we answer a question that begins with why? Let's start by rewriting the question into a statement. Try it on your own for a minute. What did you end up writing for your sentence starter? What answer word do we need to include with why? I wrote down the idea of constellations began because, and note how we changed the tense. Did is past tense. So when we restate our sentence, we need to change begin to began because we don't have did in the sentence when we do our sentence starter. Today I begin, yesterday I began. Now I want you to find evidence in the text. Now turn Now, I'm going to have you complete the remaining parts of pages 105 and 106. Remember to make corrections as necessary when we go over this.